Yeah, so I drive a 92 RX7 FD. As long as I can remember, I've been into cars. My grandparents even still talk about it to this day. Like when I just started learning how to speak, I was always like peeking out of my car seat in the window, pointing at cars and, you know, learning about all the cars. There's a Mercedes, there's a Honda, there's a this. And so it's like, seriously, as long as I can remember, I've been into cars. Now that I'm older, and as I started learning about life in the world, I really became attracted to design and physics. Have always, you know, I've been playing sports and all these things, so I've been a big physics fan. And then engineering. Engineers just blow my mind with how they do things and equations. And so cars are all three of those things in one entity, right? So you've got the design aspect, you've got the physics part of it with the way the suspension operates and with the way the power load goes to the ground and all these things, and then you've got all the engineering behind it, which is why I'm such a fan of Japanese cars, because the engineering is really impressive. I mean, Germans are great too, but the rotary engine in particular, you know, is just an engineering masterpiece. And so that's why I like cars so much. It's all my favorite passions, like, you know, into one thing. I've had plenty of cars and always been a fan of like truly everything. You know, everybody's like, oh, so you're a muscle car guy, because I like 1970 GTXs with a 446 pack and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, I like cars. You know, and then, oh, you're an import guy. No, I like cars. But rotaries, for instance, you know, it's just, as an engine or a power plant is just, it's so different than everything else out there, right? And it's always intrigued me, you know, you get the piston engine, which, you know, compression stroke, stops, downstroke, stops. And I've always found that fascinating, you know, as however many RPMs, but a rotary is one continuous motion. And I saw efficiency with that. And then as I learned how the combustion works and all these things, it really intrigued me, and I've been a rotary fan since 1999. I bought my first FC RX7 for about, I don't know, $2,000 or something, and I used to frickin', you know, I was one of those guys guilty. What's the word now? Hoon? I used to frickin' go out and drift it and slide it and whatever else. And anyways, as I evolved, I really got intrigued by the FD. I just couldn't afford one. And the FD is just, it's magic, you know, it's just so different. I've driven GTRs, I've driven Ferraris, Lambos, everything, and just the FD, there's something magical about it. The sound, the engineering behind it, I love it. It's an incredible motor. I knew when the 25-year thing, you know, was coming, so I started saving some money because I knew I wanted something special. And you know, for about a few days I had gone back and forth. Do I want a high horsepower GTR or do I want, you know, an FD, another FD? But if I go FD, it's got to be really special. I've always had, you know, this is my Smokey Nagata homage tattoo. So I've always had an affinity for the big guys, you know, and Team Midnight, you know, the lore and all these things. And it just dawned on me, I'm such an engineering fan, I'm such a this fan, I gotta get it. I gotta get an RX7, I gotta get an FD, they're legal. I'm gonna have it shipped to Re Amemiya, the most legendary rotary tuner in the world, and have it built by him. And that's what I want. And so, so that's what started it. And then, so it's funny because I was looking at a handful of different, I didn't know the first thing about importing a car from Japan. I just knew it was possible. That's all I needed to know, was that it was possible. And so I had reached out to a handful of different, you know, importers that have names. You know, you probably know the majority of them. One guy I was really fond of is this guy named Dante with Elusive Auto. So I was going back and forth between him and then this guy, Jesse Guerrero with Shinku Classics. I was basically telling all these guys, I want to find an FD in Japan and I want it shipped to RE to be built to my spec. And it just so happened that Jesse of Shinku Classics was he's like, bro, I'm gonna be in Japan this weekend. You want me to go to RE and talk to him about that? And I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah. And so, you know, 10 days, whatever, go by, and he sends me videos of RE shop and a yellow one that was just complete by RE. And I actually wanted that car. And I was gonna get that car, but then it come to find out it was a different year and it wasn't legal. So like, there was some really weird speed bumps with it. And anyways, long story short, come to find out there was this guy who's been an RE customer for years, and he had bought a former Night Sports demo car. So the guy bought it as a Night Sports demo car from Night Sports, and it was originally, you know, equipped with all the Night Sports stuff, but then that guy had it converted to whatever, his mostly stock. And they were selling it, and I thought the history was cool, so, you know, with Jesse's help, we procured that car and then had it shipped to Amemiya, which is when the ADGT kit got, you know, put on with the N102 bumper and the GT2 low mount wing. Basically, the car as you see it was specifically what I wanted, and a really cool kind of exciting thing, and where the Instagram tag comes from is I told Jesse, let Amemiya know I want the Demon King build. And if you guys aren't all familiar with the Demon King, it's the king of the Gunsai Toge, and matchless crowd racing with their 800 horsepower GTR can't beat that car. The car is basically the Toge king. So Jesse goes, talks to Amemiya, hey, I got this guy in America who wants a Demon King, you know, build. And so I don't know, about a week later, I get a build sheet from Amemiya, you know, Amemiya, Re Amemiya, Sami's name is on it, and it says Devil King build. And so that's where the name came from, the Devil King RX7, because Amemiya named it that. And so that's just basically, I looked at all the numbers and, you know, can I afford this? Make it happen, you know? And so green light, car took about 10 months to complete, and took delivery of it. That was an interesting story as well. I took delivery of it the day before 7 stock last year. So it's a twin rotor 13B REW, you know, fully rebuilt by Amemiya, and it's got, you know, upgraded ignition, 2000cc injectors, got a Supra twin turbo fuel pump, HKS downpipe, Amemiya dolphin tail exhaust system, slew of trust parts, because I'm a big, you know, you got to pay homage to the history of, you know, the import scene and all that. So a bunch of trust parts. You'll notice the twin intakes are Eric's trust, and then the twin turbos are upgraded Night Sports HT12 twin turbos. Bunch of suspension work. That's, I guess, about it. The transmission's got the Amemiya final drive. It's got the undersweep Re Amemiya short throw. It's got a Cusco two-way limited slip diff. That's basically the powertrain. I specifically wanted the ADGT1 kit. That's the wide body that goes straight back on the rear fender. A few years later, Amemiya developed the ADGT2 kit, which is almost identical, but it swoops downward. It kind of follows the fender line, which in my opinion looks a little more feminine, and I just like the more aggressive look of the ADGT. Although the ADGT2 kit is I believe 5 millimeters wider. But so there's that. It's got the N102. I specifically wanted that front bumper. The N105 is great, but it's a one piece. I wanted the N102 for the two piece because that black piece underneath is a separate piece as well. And it's an undersweep that goes basically up to the front firewall. And you'll see if you ever look at the car on a lift, it's got notches and grooves that direct air to the brakes for cooling, direct air, you know, and shoot it down the back for stability under, you know, maximum velocity runs. It's got the Amemiya GT2 low mount kit. You'll see a lot of the cars run the high mount, which I think is cool, but I just really wanted to keep everything as low as possible, so I went with the low mount. There's an interesting story about the headlights. It's got the Amemiya H11 sleek headlights. I love pop-ups, but when you're going for a specific goal and achieving 200 miles an hour, you got to have as minimal drag as possible, and so I had to do that. But coming soon, the duct headlight, which gives you the asymmetrical look. You'll see that shortly. It's at the body shop getting painted and finished. But it's the Amemiya. There's an air duct that feeds the twins as the high beam. So that was supposed to originally be on the car, but it didn't make it for a bunch of weird reasons. It's got the AD89 hood, the Amemiya AD9 hood, which helps with ventilation. It's got the Amemiya rear diffuser with Amemiya vortex generators. It's got the Amemiya taillight garnish, which I think looks really cool. And I think that's about it for aero, but there you go. It's gonna be hard not to quote unquote bastardize it, a car, the very first one in America even built by Re Amemiya, the status is one thing. So I gotta be very, very mindful of things that I need to add. Roll cage being one of them, I don't know if you've seen any of my videos from like the OC Festival of Speed where I'm, racing McLarens and all these guys, my speedometer's maxed. I have no idea how fast I'm going, and because it's kilometers, and it feels freaking dangerous. So I need to get a roll cage in there. I definitely want to do some new mirrors. It's right now got the stock mirrors. Scanadors are impossible to find, and if you do find them, they're outrageously expensive. So I need mirrors, and then I will fill you guys in on one secret thing. I am getting another front bumper from Amemiya, but it's going from Amemiya to Auto Garage TBK in Japan. Google them, Google Midnight Club. And they're going to be doing me a one-off, Amemiya as a base, Auto Garage TBK front bumper. So basically the Amemiya front bumper, the N102, is great for toge and track because it's got the canards, provides a lot of downforce. But when it's 1 and 2 a.m. and I want to go out and do maximum velocity runs, I don't want that downforce, right? So I want to be able to change the front bumper out to a more streamlined, less downforce bumper to get me through the air. So anyways, that's coming. That's about it. I don't really have plans for power because the Night Sports twin turbos and the all the upgraded fuel system and the upgraded ignition system, that's all putting out plenty of horsepower for the chassis because the car weighs 2,200 and something pounds, and so so that's really it. I mean, is it though? So we'll see. Interesting issue. I was doing a top speed run on the highway, and it was pretty early on actually. The car probably had 2,000 miles on it. I mean the fresh rebuild from Amemiya, the motor. And I'm going, and all of a sudden sparks start flying out of the 89 hood because it's got those sparks flying out. I'm like freaking out and pull over. Come to find out, it was just too much power for the stock power steering pump, and the pulley, the power steering pulley freaking seized up. And yeah, it was scary for a second. I thought my brand new coveted Amemiya FD was going to catch on fire and burn to the ground before I even had it for a year. And no, it was something really simple. So that was easy. Got taken. DNA Garage actually took care of that for me. They fixed it pretty quick. That's really that's the only issue. The car runs so smooth. It's got AC. People are just freaking out about it because I got all the AC and everything, or what the hell. It's a childhood dream come true, basically. I was born in the 80s and was in my teens in the 90s, and was driving really young because I've always been, a fan of cars, obviously, and license or not, I figured out a way to drive. And I grew up, watching the outlaws in Japan, Smokey Nagata, and Amemiya and the Midnight Club, and Amemiya is one of the core founders of the Midnight Club, and So my car is just basically a physical embodiment of all my passions in life and all my dreams as a child. You know, obviously I had the Lamborghini, you know, on my wall, and I'm a big Ferrari fanatic, but there's something to be said about the history and the soul that's in some of these builds, especially, you know, and I mean, I'm not trying to be like arrogant or anything like that. It's just Amemiya, it has got such a history of motorsports. You know, the guy is just, honest to God, legendary, and that's why I had him build my car. And so the car is just, not to reiterate again, but I guess I am, it's everything I've always loved about engineering, physics, design. The car is designed, you know, timeless. Being built by Amemiya just elevates it that much more, having that rich history. And yeah, it's truly magical. You know, there's not a lot of cars that you can say have a ton of soul. There's a lot of P cars, you know, Porsches, that do, I feel, but you know, we could go on and on, I'm sure, but it's a magical car. Just knowing that Amemiya built it, that Amemiya touched my car, and every time I'm behind the wheel and I just know that he built it, I have flashbacks to the 90s. You know, YouTube didn't exist, so I was like importing videos from Japan, like VHS. My mom's wondering why there's like $100 charges on her credit card back in 1996, you know, and you know, I was a big fan of Daijiro Yamada, with, you know, founder of Option magazine. And anyway, well, that's my shirt here, but you know, I've had drag cars, I've had, you know, all these different cars, and there's just so much soul in a car that's so perfectly balanced, you know. Everybody always like walks up to me, especially the muscle car guys or the Corvette guys. That's not a low blow to them, but how much horsepower does it have? You know, and it's like it's got the right amount of horsepower is always kind of like my answer, which then they laugh at me like I'm some, you know, whatever. But yeah, there's so much soul and mentality behind everything, just feeling everything operating, because it's such a perfectly balanced car, and Mazda did a great job from the start, and then Amemiya, you know, took that and evolved or elaborated on it, and it's just a different feeling, man, altogether. You know, you can drive 100 cars and this one's fast and this one turns good and whatever else, but when you're driving a car built by Re Amemiya Rx7, there's just, it feels different, you know. Probably placebo, I don't know, but I love it. Absolutely get an RX-7. They're just so different in so many ways that people don't even typically understand. You know, the Le Mans winning engineering and the suspension work. I mean, Mazda just did something totally special with the FD in particular. I've had a couple of FCs, I love them. Get one of those if you can as your starting RX-7, because you'll enjoy it. But a tip to know is they get a bad rap of the rotary engine. It's because a lot of people don't plan for it. If you know going in that there is more maintenance involved, it's not that it's unreliable, it just absolutely requires more maintenance. You've got to do your oil changes on time, document that stuff. Everybody's, you know, in the mode these days of instant gratification, and they don't stop and think about things, and you just got to be able to maintain the car and maintain the motor. So have some money aside. If you can't buy the engine twice, don't get it yet. Hold off, keep saving your money. Just make sure you have, you know, $2 grand in the bank so that you can perform your oil changes, you can do your scheduled maintenances, you know, on time without, you know, because when you don't have the money to do something, that's when you start getting into issues and people get frustrated at the rotary engine. So that's really the golden tip I could give you, is just have money in the bank. Don't blow your whole load on, you know, the car and trying to impress anybody. Do it for yourself and have a reserve. You know, and most people don't want to hear that, but that's truly my golden kind of tip for you guys wanting to get into rotary engine powered cars. Just have some money set aside and don't touch it. You know, that's your rotary money. Get a different bank account for all your other stuff, but have a couple G's in the rotary fund, okay? You know, I've got to give an absolute immense shout out to Jesse with Shinku Classics. He's probably going to love to see this, but because, you know, I'm not, you know, sponsored by anybody or whatever, but the guy really did go above and beyond. He made this happen, and I couldn't have done it without him. The guy just has he's got the same kind of passion that I do about these things. Yeah, as a matter of fact, on Instagram, he's JDM FC3S. He's got a really kick-ass Ultra JDM FC. But him, the Shinku Classics, and then you know, DNA Garage has been a really great help with like local maintenance. They're not ultra local to me, but they're local enough, and they really treat you as family, and I definitely, that's a big thing for me. You know, having the ability to do the work is definitely important, but when you feel like you're a part of a family, and that they truly care about you, care about your car, that's when you want to. That's what you want to look for when you're trying to find somebody to help you along the way. So DNA Garage, Shinku Classics. I do want to give a shout out to Dante Elusive Auto, because a lot of knowledge on the front end about brokering and fees and what to expect and all these things, right? So that was a big help, and gosh, if I'm missing anybody, I feel terrible. Shout out to Amasan for building it, making me happy, making my dream come true.